Today we're going to be doing the weave, the Florida weave. Now I'm not 100% sure why they call it the Florida weave versus any other state. Maybe this technique originated in Florida and some of the commercial tomato growers down there. But the Florida weave is our technique for trellising mostly determinate tomatoes, but I'm also going to show you how you can do it on indeterminate tomatoes as well. But before we do the weave, let's take a look at our tomato plants and see how they're doing and see if any of the varieties seem to be performing a little better than the others. Now I've already done the weave on some of these rows, 4 out of the 6 rows here. So we've got 6 rows in this little tomato jungle. They're all about 40 feet long. Like I said, I've already ran string on a few of them. I saved 2 rows for today so I could show y'all on this video how we do it. So on our first row here, we've got our Bella Rosa tomatoes. And all these, with the exception of a few that I had to replant, look pretty much the same size, close to it. So here's our Bella Rosas. And then right behind them, these that are a little bigger are our Brickyard Tomatoes. And we're starting to get some blooms on these guys. You can see inside that plant there. These here, the Brickyard, seem to be a little more vigorous than the Bella Rosa. Now the Bella Rosa has been our favorite for many years. We grew this Brickyard last year, really liked it, and it's performing really well this year. Just has an awesome disease package on it, a lot of vigor with that variety. And then our next row here is we've got this Summer Pick variety, which we've never grown before, and this is the one we're gonna run the Florida weave on in a minute. And these plants are pretty big too. They seem to be doing really well. So I'd say the 2 winners in the clubhouse at this point are the Brickyard and the Summer Pick. Now we go over here, we've got our Red Snapper tomatoes on the front end or top end of this row. They're looking real good. Really excited about those. I've heard some really good reports from our customers that have those growing in their gardens as well. And then down here, we've got our Celebration, which is an improved variety of the Celebrity tomato, which is very popular. Over here, we've got our Tachi tomatoes, which is our hybrid Roma type tomatoes, that part of the row, and then these Homestead tomatoes on that end of the row. So they're all looking pretty good. And then this last row here is where I have all my indeterminate types, a little more specialty tomatoes. Now I had to replant these black creme tomatoes right here. I don't know why. The first planting of those just did terrible. But the second ones I planted here are looking pretty good. They're just smaller than some of these others because we had to come in and replant them. And then we've got some of these Chef's Choice orange. And then down here is all cherry tomatoes, Sun Gold and the Sweetie variety. So I'm pretty happy with how my tomatoes are looking so far. All the plants look nice and healthy. Got a lot of foliage there. A lot of people were asking on the previous tomato video we did, you know, you're not going to cut that, trim that foliage, prune that foliage on the bottom so it's not touching the soil. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to copy Dad's tomato growing process as much as I can because he's pretty good at it, and we're just going to see how it goes. So I'm going to leave all the foliage on there, kind of maximize the foliage we have on those plants. And then I've been feeding them pretty regularly. So I've been feeding them every 2 weeks. On a previous video, you saw us side dress them with some calcium nitrate. And then a couple weeks after that video, which was a few days ago, I came in here and I injected some 20-20-20 and some micro boost. And I'm just gonna alternate, I think. I'm gonna go 20-20-20 1 week. I'm gonna go calcium nitrate 2 weeks after that, and just go back and forth between the 20-20-20 micro boost combination and the calcium nitrate. And that's gonna be my kind of planned feeding program for these tomatoes. So now let's talk about the weave. I'll show you kind of some of the basic principles or components of the Florida weave, and then I'll actually demonstrate it for you. So the basic premise of the Florida weave is that we have stakes positioned in line with our plants there, and then we use twine to weave in and around those plants and then wrap around those posts, and it secures those plants in position. And as the plants grow, we run more lines of weave all the way to the top of the post if we need to. And this is just a really good way to trellis tomatoes, especially if you're growing, you know, even just one 20, 30, 40 foot row. It's really easy, it works really well. Works a lot better than just putting a stake up and tying the plant to a single stake. This is a lot more secure method from our experiences. We've tried just about everything over the years. So we can see here, each plant has string or twine on both sides of the main stem there, and that holds it in place. And you can use several different types of twine. There's lots of options out there. I'll show you 2 different options we use. As far as the stakes go, I've done this several different ways over the years. I really like using these wooden stakes here, so these are 4 foot tall. As far as how many stakes you use, that's kind of up to you. I have done it, you know, the last couple years I put a stake between every plant. This year, since I got more foliage, I think the plants will lean on each other a little better. So I saved myself a little work and just put a stake between every 2 plants. In here in the middle, between the plants, with the way we do this weave, that twine crosses over right there. So it keeps this plant from leaning too far this way, and it keeps this plant from leaning too far this way, because we've got that intersection of twine right there. Now I'll show you here on this row of summer picks that I haven't done the Florida weave on yet, how we put these stakes in the ground. So remember, we've got drip tape, you can see it right there. We've got buried drip tape underneath all these tomato plants. So you just feel down in the dirt there and find your tape, and there it is. You can see it. There's my tape right there. And I just put the post or the stake right beside that tape. You want to make sure you don't poke a hole in that tape. That's when we kind of dig down, find where the tape is, and put the stake right beside it. And one more thing about the stake. So in past years, I have used a T-post on the end of each row, and sometimes a few spots in the middle of each row as a way to kind of keep everything stronger. But I don't think I'm gonna need that this year. The commercial guys don't ever use T-posts. All they use is these wooden stakes. So I went all wooden stakes this year, at least on these determinate varieties. Now, these wooden stakes here, like I said, are 4 foot tall. That's probably as tall as these determinate tomatoes are going to get. So that's the perfect height for them. Over here on this last row where we've got these determinate tomatoes planted, I went with T-posts all along the row, because these tomatoes are going to get a good bit taller than these determinates here. So we went T-posts here, which are, you know, 5, 6 foot tall in some spots. And that's going to allow us to account for these taller plants a lot better. So there's a lot of flexibility there as far as how you set up your stakes for the weave. Now the way we actually do the weave is the way we do the weave. There's really only one way to do it, but depending on, you know, what you have available, you can use different types of stakes or put the stakes, you know, closer together if you want. I wouldn't put more than 2 plants between each stake, because then you might start to get a little leaning on those plants when they get taller. So I would either go a stake between every plant or a stake between every 2 plants like we did here. So just use what you got. There's no concrete rule as far as what stakes you've got to use or how many stakes you need to use, as long as you use enough stakes. So let me talk about our twine or our string options here. We've got 2 that we carry on our website and that we use, and I'll put some links below so you can check both of these out. The first one here, this big box of twine, is a synthetic twine. This is what all the commercial tomato growers use. You go to any, you know, tomato farm in Florida, Georgia, basically anywhere, you're going to see them out there using this type of twine right here. Like I said, it's a synthetic twine, which means it's nice and strong. It doesn't stretch. The only downside to it, it's not biodegradable, so you would have to go in and remove it when your tomato plants are done. I don't find that to be a huge issue, but this twine here comes in a little box, and there's a ton of twine in this box. I think I used to say it on the box. Well, there's 1,700 yards or so of twine in this box, so over a mile of twine. So this is going to last you a long time. And you know, even when you're not staking up tomatoes, it's just good to have some of this around on the garden and homestead. You can find a lot of different uses for this twine right here. Need to tie something up around the garden. So I really like that big box, just having that around. And that's what we're going to use on those determinates when we do the Florida weave in a minute. Now on those indeterminates where we got the T-posts, we're going to use this stuff here, and you'll see why when we get to that point. This is what we call cotton butcher string. And so this is a cotton twine, same thing that butchers use to tie up meat and stuff, but it works really good for doing the Florida weave on tomatoes. Since it's cotton, it is biodegradable. You get a lot less here. So this is only 180 feet, but if you're just doing a small row or a little section of the Florida weave, this right here might be your best option. So we've got the cotton string here in the small rolls, and then we've got the synthetic twine here in the big box. Okay, I think my head may be cut off a little bit, but that's all right, because I really want to show you how this works. So the advantage of having this big box of twine here is it's got these cutouts here where you can put it on your belt loop. So you don't have to carry it around, put it on your belt. Make sure you use a pretty strong belt, not one of those kind of fancy belts you wear to church. You need a good, strong, kind of manly belt to hold up this big box of twine. I got a pipe here, and the pipe is going to serve to guide the string around these plants. So I don't have to bend over and do it by hand. I can use this pipe. And that's another reason I like these wooden stakes here. If you got real tall stakes, it's kind of hard to wrap the pipe around those stakes. But if the stakes are relatively short, like these 4-foot ones here, which work good for the determinates, the pipe works well. Now the length of the piece of pipe will just depend on how tall you are. My pipe here is probably 3.5 foot long. I'm about 6'1", so just get a scrap piece of pipe and cut it to whatever length you'd like it. So I've got my string here ran through my pipe, and we're just going to start off and we're going to tie this string to this wooden stake here, probably about 4 or 5 inches off the ground. And this doesn't have to be some kind of fancy sailor's knot, just, you know, good old double knot will work here. Get it nice and tight there. And so I'm going to use my left hand to keep the string tight as I work down the row. That's why I've got the box on my left hand side. I'm using my right hand to kind of direct the string with this pipe here. So if you're left-handed, you probably do it the other way around. You probably put the box of twine on your right hand side. So I'm going to hold my string tight. Then I'm going to go on one side of this plant here, the side closest to me, and then on this plant I'm going to go on this side. And we try to get these closest to the main stem as possible. You may have to reach down there sometimes and lift up them leaves so you can get it in there good. So we go on one side, the first plant, the other side of the second plant. Then we get to our stake here, keep our line tight and just wrap it around a couple times. And then do the same thing here. Go on that side, switch to this side, wrap it around our stake down here. And this pipe really helps make things nice and quick. And then when we get down to the end of the row here, we'll wrap around the end stake a few times, and we're just going to go back the other way. We're going to go on the other side of the plant from what we started with here. So we kind of get it nice and held in position there. Still going to wrap around the stake each time as we come back. Make sure to keep our string nice and tight as we work along the road here. When we get here, we're going to wrap 3 or 4 times on that nice and tight around that terminal post there. Then I'm going to get down here and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut the string while keeping it tight. And then we're just going to tie it off right here. Now everything's nice and tight along that row. We got the string on both sides of the plants, and these babies ain't going anywhere. Now for these indeterminates here, where we've got the T-posts instead of the wooden stakes, we've got, you know, at least a couple more feet of stake here. We're not going to use the pipe because it's kind of hard if you're holding that twine to get it around the stake and get it down here at the bottom. Makes it tough when you're running that first line of string. So we're going to do it by hand. We're going to do it with this cotton butcher string here. And hopefully on this section here I can move the camera around and show you a little more close-up of what it looks like. I'm just a one-man show here. I don't have a cameraman follow me around. So we're going to take our cotton butcher string. We're going to do the same thing we just did, except without the pipe. Now right here I kind of broke my own rule a little bit. I've got 3 plants between these 2 stakes just because there was an odd number of plants along the road there, so I really didn't have a choice. But you know, we try to keep 2 plants between each stake for the most part. So we've got our cotton twine here. We're going to start out just like we did on the other one. I'm going to tie us a little double knot here, get our twine nice and secure, and then we'll start weaving. So I'm going to use this hand to hold my ball of string. I'm going to use this hand to keep it tight. Go on that side of that plant, this side of this plant. When I get down here, I'm going to wrap it tight just a couple times. And as I said before, making sure you wrap it around this post here nice and tight is the key. You don't want this line to be slack, because then your tomato plants are going to get slack. We'll go on that side of that guy. Try to get in close to this main stem as we can. Wrap around here. Oh, those tomato plants smell good. Sometimes I have to lift up that foliage. These guys are getting pretty big, especially some of these cherry ones. Right here, wrap it one more time. And when we get down to the end of the row here, that's where we're going to wrap around this end stake several times, get nice tight, and we're just going to go back the other way around the other side of these plants here, just like you do in the weave. Now we're back here to where we started doing our weave, and we just need to tie it off right here. Get us a good little knot in there. Try to keep it as tight as we can. And there we go. That's pretty tight. I like that. That shouldn't go anywhere. All right, all right, all right. Got that done. Might have a little windstorm coming in tonight, so I wanted to make sure I got those last 2 rows twined up nice and secure. So the actual Florida weave part doesn't take very long. It's a pretty quick process. Now getting your stakes set up is the more time consuming part of it, but that's only, you know, you only have to do that one time per season or per year. Now how many lines of string you run or how often you do it is completely up to you, and it's going to depend on your plants mostly. So some of these brickyards here getting a good bit taller than that first line of twine, so in the next week or so I'm probably going to have to run one more line on those, and as they grow to be as tall as that 4-foot stake there, I'll probably end up doing 3 or 4 lines of twine there. When those things start putting on fruits, plants get heavy and need a lot more support. So I usually say 3 or 4 lines of twine along that 4-foot stake, but that's up to you. You can do as many as you need to keep those plants nice and secure. On these indeterminate cherry tomatoes over here where we've got the T-post, we'll probably have to run more than 3 or 4. We'll probably run, you know, maybe 5 or 6 by the time we get to the top of those posts there. So if you use the Florida weave technique on your tomatoes, your peppers, and your eggplants like we do, tell me how you like it. Maybe you do it slightly different than we do. Tell me about that as well. And maybe some of you don't like the Florida weave. You've got another way you like to trellis or stake your tomatoes. I'd love to hear about those techniques too. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification button so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. If you enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up and check out these other 2 videos right here. Other ones we've done on trellising nightshade plants like tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. We'll see you next time.